Oscar García-Johnson, and the title of his talk is Theology of the Landless, a decolonial search for Trans-americany. Dr. Oscar García-Johnson has a PhD from Fuller Seminary. He is a diasporic scholar renowned for his transformative contribution to theology and intercultural studies. His groundbreaking works, including the multi-volume series Nuevo Mundo Theology, and his exploration of decolonial trans-occidental hermeneutics, have generated international attention. With a focus on coloniality, immigration, race, Christian doctrine, and Latino and Latina studies, Dr. Garcia challenges traditional Western-centric interpretations, offering alternative perspectives with marginalized voices. His captivating speaking engagements inspire global audience to critically engage with theology and indigeneity within a colonial framework. He expresses a strong commitment to academic excellence and the promotion of inclusive and transformative intellectual discourse through his scholarly endeavors. Welcome to Bethlehem. It's good to have you with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And several of the things I'm going to share with you is, I believe, very interlaced with grace. So thank you for providing the language. I'm thrilled to be here. The more I encounter Palestinian land, peoples, and culture, the more I feel this land can teach me how to be a better diasporic person and scholar. And I think that's a part of what Dr. Majid Shihadi was talking about in the first panel, that encounter across borders is important. I'm a Latino diasporic scholar living in the United States, born in Honduras, Central America. But everything that I said to you right now, all the names and places that I mentioned to you to identify myself carry a heavy history of displacement. On May 3, and Grace mentioned that Pope Alexander VI, native from Valencia, decided to assign the West Indies, the newly discovered territories, to Portugal and Spain. And so Abya Yala, the name we give to the Americas in indigenous language, pretty much the territories of Tawantinsuyu, Anahuac, and Haiti became Europe's new world, the colonial territories. Later, America was invented. In 1821, the Creole and Mestiza people of those colonial territories led the former colonies to political independence from European powers with the blood of indigenous peoples and African descendants. Now, the Federal Republic of Central America was born, 1821. But in 1841, under the influence of the United States of America, Monroe Doctrine and Manifest Destiny, and under other, with other factors too, the Republic of Central America conveniently disintegrated into several small territories. One of them was Honduras, divide and conquer. The Lenca indigenous name of the territory of Honduras was Shakab-Han, Great Mountain. That name was erased forever. Now, I went through elementary and high school in my country of origin. I never learned indigenous history in my school and in my education. Neither did I learn the migration story, and here is the connection between Honduras and Palestine. Never did I learn migration history, for example, the significant connection between Palestine and Honduras in Central America. Palestinians have been migrating to Honduras and other areas since the 19th century, or the Ottoman occupation, the interwar period of the British rule, 1919 to 1939, between the 1945 and 1967, the establishment of the Israelite occupation, and then the post-Nakba in 1967. Those being waves of migration from Palestine to Honduras and Central America. I grew up with a diasporic Palestinian, now that I think about it. I grew up with them. I went to school with Palestinians, with Syrians, with Lebanese. We went to school together, but I never knew their history, never knew their story. That was not how we related. And there have been influential leaders. For example, one of the presidents of Honduras in 1998 to 2002 was a Palestinian descendant leader. And we have one in El Salvador right now, which is a bit, I don't know if I want to mention him here right now, because it has a double standing in terms of the Palestinian and Israelite identity. But this is just to mention that the stories that have formed me and many of us do not make naturally the connection between land, identities, erasure, and that is something I think is important to rescue, and I'm glad for this opportunity to be here. And so in that sense, I think what I just mentioned to you connects with what we're trying to do here in this table. I'm engaged in an intercontinental theological project known Nuevo Mundo Theology, New World Theology. That's a kind of intriguing. In a way, it's been a bad world, for many years. This initiative aims to reimagine theology within the context of the American Global South, encompassing Latin America and the global diasporas, or world diasporas, drawing from decolonial methodologies and embracing indigenous theological perspectives. My goal is to explore the intricate interplay of land, body, and the pursuit of conviviality in the world. This framework has three objectives, and those three objectives, in a way, inform what I'm quickly communicating here, and this is written, so you're going to be able to have access to that. The first objective is to be able to say and to understand that we need to recover denied history. That's priority number one. During the European colonization, the term New World was imposed upon Abiyala, a living territory with a rich history. Conquistadors and colonizers regarded it as terra nullius, which we had another session, and this was treated at length. And terra nullius conveyed the idea that the land is devoid of history and knowledge, ripe for occupation and possession. So indigenous inhabitants were deemed savages in need of civilization and Christianization. I argued that as people and lands of the Americas, we carry a colonial wound in everything we do and everything we become. That imprint is not gone, is never forgotten, is part of us. It's a tattoo that we carry in our soul. The second objective is to be able to never undermine our stories of survival and resistance. The extensive exploitation of peoples and ecosystems during the conquest and colonial order gave rise indeed to a new world. Not Europe's new world, it was a different new world. Indigenous nations transformed for better or worse into mestizo modern republics governed by Creole elites. I mean, to Western domination, we have forget our own identities and have lived as landless communities, yearning for a home and harboring countless unnamed aspirations and utopias. Whatever we do to survive, both within and outside of the Americas, we must do validating and drawing the strength from the sources that have imbued our lives with meaning, enabling us to persist in the hope of reconnecting with our lost histories and Mother Earth. Finally, the third objective is to never undermine our stories of survival. Never cease to envision a world where diverse cultures coexist harmoniously. In the 21st century, a new societal paradigm has emerged in the aftermath of COVID-19 pandemic 2020, truly constituting a new world. This transformative phenomenon encompasses several significant developments: a global health crisis, widespread protests and revolutions against racism, sexism, and colonialism, the rise of informational society and info-capitalism, and the evolving war crisis in West Asia, the so-called Middle East, Ukraine, Afghanistan, and various parts of Africa. I argue that as people subjected to imperial, colonial, and modern subjugation, our actions are driven not by the local resistance, but also by the desire to re-exist in global conviviality, constructing resilient living environments that serve as experimental societies where diverse cultures and worldviews can coexist within the cracks and borders of structural imperialism and Western monoculturalism. So this framework, clearly referred to as Nuevo Mundo theology, finds itself at a critical juncture, grappling with the challenges posed by global dominance of Western Christendom. This paper delves into the profound impact of Western colonialism in the context of our new world. It sheds light on the perpetuation of violent epistemic cartographies that have shaped the trajectory of theology and mission in the American global South. Talking about theological cartographies, from the victim's perspective, the invasion of Abya Yala was not simply an evangelistic endeavor, clearly. It was a strategic mechanism of land conquest, bodily extermination, epistemicides, and violent evangelization, all of that intertwined. So beyond weaponry, coloniality needs letters and images to rule. We all know that after Said. In Europe's idea of the New World, colonial power relied on relics and sacred cartographies to establish control, echoing Edwards' insights on cultural imperialism. We can think about interesting elements that sort of construct the social imaginaries of the people moving here in the 15th century. Number one, a cartographic theological worldview that divided the world into Africa, Europe, and Asia. Number two, an ethno-racial category that took root early, portraying Europe as a destined to expand and subjugate out of that theological cartography. Number three, proto-racism as an experiment of the Al-Andalusia region that then was taken to the Americas. And then you have all the castas moving, and then it was back in Europe, and it was constructed in a very interesting, interconnection. And fourth, the supersessionism continued to fuel Europe's chosen identity and their new colonial structures of privilege. Now, when we look in this scenario from the 15th century, we cannot deny that Christianity and Christendom, particularly the Western self-positioning as a privileged people, created a trajectory that we are still dealing with. And several people have thought about the different invasions, both epistemic, which is sort of symbolic, and also material. For example, we can speak about some people call it salvation through the colonial economy and civilizing Christianization. These are soteriological, aspects of how to do economics, politics, and religion. All that intertwined. Salvation by colonial economy and civilized nations from the 1500s to the 1800s. Too, we can speak about salvation through U.S. Americanism in the 19th century, which included the introduction of Protestantism and liberal democratic principles, at least in the Americas. I'm sure we can track that in other places. We can speak about, number 3, the salvation through the doctrine of development from the 1930s to the 1960s. And finally, we can speak about another invasion, which is through market capitalism from the 1970s to the 200s. We still have that now. Capitalism has changed through info-capitalism. But I think those 4 layers of invasions have created levels of displacement in our people and around the world. Let me show you, because we're at the end, at the tail of this, let me show you some images that I think I'd like to move to those images to try to illustrate what I call the problem. I think to discuss the doctrine of discovery is important, but I think it's more important to discuss the doctrine of creation. Because it is the doctrine of creation that have, in a way, created caricatures of God, caricatures of creation, and caricatures of life. And in a way, we can even document that as we move from, for example, how the New World was portrayed in Europe in 1592, Theodore de Bride, and you can see the depiction of, this is the land of the devil. So you're talking about, this is the land of the devil. People with demonic, nature, subhuman, soulless, so to speak, without alphabet, without history, are part of that, and we need to go there and save it with fear and trembling, because we can be contaminated. We can even be uncivilized. We, the civilized, can be uncivilized. We can become savages. That is anthropomorphosis. Very interesting. England, 1650. And then clearly we need to maintain categories, and we need to clear ourselves, and we have this casta system that it was prevalent in the colonial places up to the 17th century. That is being part of our reality, and I think that in a way constitutes the undoing of I would say original imaginaries. We never know how those were, but clearly Anahuac, Tawantinsuyo, and Haiti is become a conglomerate of nation states, with people without clear identity and with people without land. Now, I don't have time here, but in the Q&As we can talk about, okay, what is the proposal? 4 ideas in how to re-originate a theology that subverts this, because if theology was part of the problem, we need to create a theology that is insurgent and from the underside is able to act against the colonial modernity. Thank you very much.